I had no idea I was so out of the loop. My wife was in the hospital and had just given birth to a brown-eyed, red-haired. I had this image of a little boy with brown hair and dark eyes, which set off alarm bells in my head. The baby was very light-skinned and had these cute little dimples. As it turns out, there is a story to tell. My wife told me one, and now it's time for the truth. Hi, I'm Jeff Patterson, and my wife is the one and only Jen. I never thought my wife would cheat on me. I love her with all my heart. Before we got together, Jen had been married to Hugh for 8 years and they had one son. Hugh Jr. Hugh Sr. was never an issue for me because he truly didn't care what was going on with Jen. I know this because Hugh is one of my lodge brothers. Hugh said from the beginning that he thought she was a woman of loose morals. He said to me, "Jeff, you can't turn a woman into a housewife." I was annoyed, and of course I wanted to take it outside. When Hugh came outside, he put his hand up to say stop and then asked me why we were fighting. I said, "Hugh, I can't have you calling my wife a. I know she's your ex, but I am her husband now." Hugh stood there and looked at me. He said, "You're right, Jeff. I am sorry, but as a brother of this lodge, when the time is right, you'll need my help. Don't be afraid to ask for it." I went back inside and I knew then that I could trust Hugh. He never held anything against me and even backed me up on a few things, so I had no problem with him. Jen, on the other hand, hated Hugh with a passion at lodge events. She would go out of her way to compete with him and his wife, Sammy. She tried to one-up him and his wife, Sammy. One day, Sammy was chatting with a few of the lodge wives when Jen came up and asked how the deadbeat was doing. Sammy smiled and replied, "He's doing well. He just brought me a Range Rover. It's a couple of years old, but it's good for the family." Jen said, "I don't see him around. I guess he must be at the bar." Sammy said, "No, he's outside talking to the lodge president about building a clubhouse for the kids with Jen." Jen left and walked over to me and said, "We need a new car. A new Range Rover, and it needs to be fully loaded." I shook my head. Hugh had he told us how he traded in his truck to get his wife a Range Rover. He said Sammy needs it for the kids and work. Hugh always did what was needed. He drove an old model Ford F-150. It was old and rusty, but still ran fine. I said Jen's money doesn't grow on trees, but once you get back to work, you have to start somewhere. To help pay for it, you see, Jen didn't work while she was married to Hugh. She did get a job after the divorce, but now she was out of work again after Jen complained for a few minutes. She left to talk with some of the other wives. I sat down and talked to some of my lodge brothers. We talked for about an hour. An hour later, I started looking for Jen. I spotted her about 10 minutes later, dancing with a lodge brother. I went out to cut in, and Jen said, "Hi, honey, what up?" I said nothing. I just want to dance with my sexy wife. So I cut in, and my lodge brother left. I asked Jen, "Are you?" She said she was enjoying herself, but that it would be even better if I got her home and in bed. I didn't have to be asked twice. She grabbed her purse and we headed for the door, with me waving goodbye to my lodge brothers. Once we got in the car, Jen was on me, and she gave me a good time. Things were going well for us. Work was fine, the lodge was doing great, and sex was unbelievable. Then Jen told me she was pregnant. The first thing that crossed my mind was that she was 45 years old and pregnant. By the time this kid gets out of the house, I'll be on Social Security. That was a bit of a shock. I have 2 kids and Jen has Hugh Jr. Hugh Jr. is 25 and has a kid of his own. Sandy, my daughter, is a senior too, and my son Jacob is a junior at Old Mississippi. Jen, are you sure? That's what we need to talk about. Do you really want to have another baby? I asked Jen. I asked her what she wanted to do. She replied, "We should think about it." It was a long night. The next morning, as Jen was leaving, I asked, "What do you have planned for today?" Jen looked at me and said, "I'm not sure what's going on at the lodge after I get my hair done. I'll give you a call later, okay?" I said, "I'm sorry, but this is her husband. Can I help you?" "Yes, I'm looking for my wife's credit card. She left it at the front desk." "Which hotel are you at?" I can come by and pick it up myself, and save her the trip. I have to say, the Hyatt Regency East is a very nice hotel. I thanked the man and told him the card would be waiting for him at the front desk. I was curious though, why would my wife be at the Hyatt? I called Visa and asked for an itemized statement. They asked me for the card number, but I didn't have it. I gave them her card number. The lady on the phone asked me to hold on while she went to a supervisor. The supervisor said, "Mr. Patterson, one of the cards is her personal card, so we can't send you that bill." I asked how the bill was going to be paid. The supervisor explained that the payments were. I was told that the charges would be split between the two cards on a 60% 40% basis, and that both would be paid on the same invoice. I told them I'm the person who pays the bills, so either send me the statements or let me know who is being paid. The supervisor said they would check and get back to me about 15 minutes later. I got an itemized statement in an email. It was worse than I thought. Jen had been going to the hotel twice a week for the last 6 months. I couldn't think of any reason that Jen needed to be using hotel for. So now I was going to do something I never expected. "Hello Hugh, I need your help. I'm going to the lodge and I need to bring a suitcase. I don't want to leave her, I just need help." I said, "I'll bring a suitcase." I grabbed one of the travel bags from the closet and drove to the lodge. When I got there, I looked around. Hugh opened the door and said, "Come on in." We went inside and went to the security office. There were about 15 monitors inside, and they had cameras everywhere. Hugh cleared his throat and said, "Jeff, after you see this, I don't know if you'll be able to stay married. Think about what you want before you watch this. She's pregnant, and I need to know or I can't move on." He said he understood the tape was already booted up, so he hit play. The first thing I saw was Jen making love with Hugh. He said, "I told you to bring the suitcase for a reason. Jeff, I'm giving all of this to you. It's your marriage, so you decide. If you want to work it out, then work it out. But if you want to divorce her, you can use what I'm giving you." I think there must have been 30 tapes and 20 DVDs in total. Hugh shook his head as he said she's just been a busy girl. There were 4 lodge brothers and just about all of the staff on video. Hugh continued, "But the brothers will have to go before the board of trustees." Jeff thought long and hard but did what he felt was best for him. I spent the rest of the week fishing. I told Jen it was a lodge thing. By Wednesday, it was over while Jen was having her fling. A few of the other wives and I packed up Jen's stuff from the house. My phone started going off, and the caller ID showed it was Jen. I said, "Jeff, what's this about a divorce? Where did you get the papers from?" Jen didn't answer. She just went on the offensive. "Look, Jeff, you can't just throw me away. You love me and can't live without me. You said it yourself. I can't live with food." The last thing I heard was. As I was signing off, things moved pretty fast after that. Although Jen got the judge to hold off on the divorce until the baby was born, then she started going to church. Then she told me that Hugh had drugged her and set her up. She kept repeating it so much that I started having doubts. One of my friends, who had nothing to do with the lodge, took the tapes to a video lab to be tested. Once the lab concluded that they were authentic, Jen changed her story. She must have been drugged. Next, it was the devil made her do it, but now she's in church. I think she was praying that we were waiting in the courtroom for the DNA results. The judge asked me if I was sure I wanted to know who the father was. I said yes. The judge opened the results and asked Jen who the father was. She said, "Yes, Your Honor, it's Jeff." Patterson said he looked at Jen and shook his head. "The game is over, Mrs. Patterson. Your husband is not the father of this child." The judge gave me an $851 and 15% split of our assets because we had only been married for 3 years. I have to pay her $75 a week for 2 years, and she got $1. I had to use $0.000 from my savings, but I didn't get a share of my retirement account. I did have to pay the lawyer's fees, but that was fine because at least this was over. I was lucky to get off so lightly. It's been 2 years now and I have to make my last spousal support payment today. We're having a party at the lodge to celebrate my wife's last payment. One of my colleagues from the lodge was there too. It was packed. Hugh grabbed me and took me into the back room. Jeff, I'd like you to meet the lodge's board of directors. The head of the board had his back to me when I entered the room. When he turned around, I almost spit out my drink. Your Honor, what are you doing here? I asked. I am the chairman of the board, he said, with a big grin on his face. Even my boss was on the board. Hugh said to Jeff, I once told you don't be afraid to ask for my help. You weren't afraid, and now it's your time. I was elected to the board, and there would be a day when it was my turn to help a fool in love. Oh, and my last payment to Jen, I made it in small coins. Who would think that the tellers at the bank would get mad for me asking for $175 in pennies at closing time? I know. You think I'm an idiot. I just love it when cheaters get burnt. It may be a little over the top, but then so is the justice system.